We never buried the Japanese. Their bodies just decayed. Even to this day, if I drive by a cemetery and if they're using recycled water, I think I can smell the dead bodies. Those are two smells you never get over with. First, we were sent ashore to set up sleeping quarters and a CP for General Erskine. And when we landed on the beach, it was just absolute chaos. I thought I had seen quite a bit in Guam, but this came as a shock. They hadn't yet started to bury any of the bodies. They were bloated, there were maggots, there were parts of bodies, there were people, Marines that had no head, missing legs, there was broken equipment, there was wounded lined up on the beach like railway ties. It was just utter chaos, and it seemed like the one with the loudest voice was the one that was in command. We set up Erskine, and again, his bodyguard. We were Trimble and I, and the Japanese had spigot mortars, and a spigot mortar is bigger than a 55-gallon oil drum. It's just loaded with explosives. It's rocket propelled, and it tumbles. After the rocket burns out, it reminds you of reminded me of the Roadrunner in cartoons. You may see it occasionally now on TV, the kids may, where the Roadrunner looks up and a piano is going to fall on him and crushes him, or a truck runs him over and he's flattened out. Well, that's how you felt when you saw this tumbling 55-gallon oil drum coming towards you. It blew a tremendous hole in the ground, and there wasn't much shrapnel, but the concussion was horrible. And if you were close enough, you'd bleed from the ears, you'd bleed from the nose, your brain really got rattled. And one landed near Erskine, and he, up until that point, the recon company had not been, you could get shot anywhere on Iwo. It was 2x4. They put 30,000 of us ashore, and there were 21,000 of them. So you could just throw a grenade anywhere and you hit something. In fact, when we got ashore, I threw a phosphorus grenade into a spider hole, or spider trap, and Trimble yelled to me, he says, "Look behind you." And the smoke from the phosphorus grenade came out behind me. And they had 17 miles of tunnels throughout, and they could scurry everywhere. They figured the battle would last 3 days, and of course it lasted from February 19th till March 27th. Anyway, Erskine wanted to find out where the spigot mortars were coming from. They were coming night and day. And he said that you could see them better at night. So he asked for our lieutenant, Stack, and our company commander, Oscar Selgo, Lieutenant John Stack. He asked for 8 volunteers, and I'll never forget them. There was Warren Garrett. He was the old man of the outfit. He was 24, had 2 children. There was Trimble, there was me. There was Corporal Reed, he was in charge of the patrol. There was McCluskey, never did find his body. There was Nitzel, he He died of wounds. There was Jim White, and there was Lee Blanchard. Lee Blanchard stayed in the Marines and became a colonel. And we set out on February 28th to look for these spigot mortars and see where they were coming from. And then we had a radio with us. McCluskey was the radio man, and we strung the wire. And we went to a ridge between, there were two hills, 362 and 382. And, excuse me. And there was a ridge line. And we went to the top, to the ridge line, and it overlooked an open mine sulfur pit. And when a shell would come and land in the sulfur pit, it would ignite the sulfur. It was a big open pit, and off to the right was the village of Moriyama, where the civilians had lived. And I don't know how they did it, but they raised pineapples on Iwo Jima, and the volcanic ash is unbelievable. And we set up on the top. We set up around 6 o'clock in the evening. We set up two men on the top of the ridge with the radio. Then we dropped down 50 feet. On top was Reed and McCluskey. Next came Netzel and Warren Garrett. Then came Trimble and me. And down at the bottom was Jim White and Lee Blanchard. Well, at midnight we were to shift every 6 hours. And there was always to be one man awake and one man asleep. Well, nobody ever did go to sleep, because just before we were to switch, the Japanese started to infiltrate and come up the ridge. Now, years ago they made a movie, Sherlock Holmes movie. It was called The Hound of Baskervilles, and I think they remade it with Robert Downey on some series, BBC. But the story was on the moors in Scotland, this fog would come up at night, and there was a huge hound that was in this fog, and he would come bounding out and kill people. Well, Sherlock Holmes was called in to solve the problem. Anyway, that's how I felt on Hill 362 and on the ridge in 382. I was waiting for this hound to come bounding out of the sulfur fumes. But what came out of the sulfur fumes were the Japanese who were coming at us. Now, mind you, there were 8 of us, and behind us, and we were in front of a mortar platoon. So we were right there in the front lines. And the Japanese had something that a few of us have seen on Iwo Jima. Not all outfits had it. They had on the back of their neck, they had a little pin, phosphorus pin. And with just a little moonlight or starlight, their officer could see his men and how they moved. We couldn't see the pin because it was on the back of their neck. But what happened was, at one point, a little bit after midnight, we turned around. And if you turned around and looked and you saw the pins, then we knew we were in big trouble. And the battle lasted about, hand-to-hand combat, about 3 hours. And thank God we had grenades the way we did.